Hello everyone, welcome back. My name is Vijesh Rajan. I'm a motion designer and a VFX supervisor, and I work at Plexus. With the explosive release of Oppenheimer this weekend, we're going to get into a title sequence that is made of his worst nightmares. We're reviewing the title sequence of Raised by Wolves. Let's jump right in.
The door that finally opens with light flooding in, spilling out on the floor. The core that never was, now it will be. The bones of what was there before. Every step, every beat, every thought, every breath, everything is lost. Every wind, every wave, every sky, every cloud, every grave is lost. Pulling you from the sky, just like love will do.
Wow, that sequence gave me goosebumps. It felt like I was watching somebody else's memories, but from the future, from World War III. And there was a stark contrast, On one hand, we have like these visuals of world-ending nuclear explosions, and strangely, they look so beautiful and tranquil. And on the other hand, we have beautiful melodic music. It just creates this feeling of delightful dread. It's hard to understand, but the sequence just navigates that so well. So title sequences always set the tone for the show that you're about to watch. They're like the viewer's first introduction to the world of the show that they're going to see. In the case of Raised by Wolves, the show centers around two androids who are on this different planet. It's not Earth. And they're raising human children. But the story has nothing about how they reach there. And so the title sequence kind of has to take this massive task up of explaining what happened, what are the events that led human beings to leave Earth and reach this planet, and it does a spectacular job at it. So let's take a look at the visual storytelling of how the story unfolds on screen. So we start with a visual of 3 nuclear explosions back to back, but we know that it's not just 3. It's pretty indicative that there's many more that have happened. And then we start seeing signs of destruction and this fires and collapsing bridges. They're all set against these jets traveling in the sky. Perhaps people have already started evacuating Earth. Then we witness signs of deep space navigation, hinting at humanity's escape. And then as the title is revealed from the shadows, we see a ship entering a portal. And that means this is interstellar travel. With a sonic boom, the ship exits and introduces to a new world. These few key visuals explain how they left and eventually how they landed, and the reason why they had to leave. So like I was saying, this is actually Oppenheimer's worst nightmare. But at the end of the nightmare, there's a dream of hope. So let's jump right into the visual design of the show. This sequence is designed by Studio AKA, which is a UK-based studio. It's directed by Steve Small, who's a really talented illustrator and animator. And I'm pretty sure there was a team of animators as well who worked on this. But when I took a closer look at Steve's work, I couldn't believe that this is the same guy who created this sequence. All his illustrations are so cute and so vibrant and so colorful, and his characters are just so huggable. So how could the same guy have made this dark and apocalyptic title sequence? It doesn't make sense. That's when I found this video on his website, and I instantly recognized the style of animation. You can see the same flickering loops of hand-painted textures on both the Raised by Wolves title sequence as well as this animation. And that was an instant reminder to me that if an artist is good enough, then it doesn't matter what kind of storytelling he is attached to, he can make something great out of it. When it comes to Raised by Wolves, it's easy to understand why he chose black and white as a palette. It's a nod to the series' central theme of duality, of life and death, of hope and despair, of creation and destruction. The sepia-tinted look draws on our collective memory of World War II's archival footage, disturbing images captured through corroded lenses. In an interview, director Steve Small said that the chief inspiration for this look were early photogravures, which is basically an old process that photos used to be printed with, but somehow it blurs the lines between photos and paintings. You can see what I mean when you look at the images over here. These are all from the 1800s and these look very much like paintings. So he used all these visual cues to create that look. But what was his technical process? If this sequence released in 2023, my assumption would have been that it's completely made and prevised in 3D, rendered in black and white, and then they used a deep learning AI model like Stable Diffusion or something to create this paint-over style. But, drum roll before I tell you guys what they actually used. They used Adobe Animate. I know, right? When I think Adobe Animate, I can't help think Flash, 2D, flat, maybe with gradients, but not a lot of texture. But this team knew exactly what they were doing. All of the intricate animation like the explosion, the fires, the portals, they were all hand-drawn frame by frame. Details were then added in After Effects and Photoshop. You can see that they've also used Houdini for creating realistic simulations, like this massive satellite dishes being stripped into dust particles, or this bridge collapsing. It's all very realistic physics, and that's why they might have had to use Houdini. But eventually, all of it was brought back into Animate and hand-painted. And that's what gives it this surreal quality. It's sort of like you're in a painter's dream, which is somehow archival footage. But if you look at the visuals in isolation, doesn't it all look really dark and depressing? That brings me to a really important part about this title sequence, the music. So initially the animators had no idea what kind of music they wanted to put into the sequence, and neither did the production house. And as they were working on the sequence and sending in the visuals, Ridley Scott, who's the executive producer of the show, and I think he even directed a couple of episodes, felt that the visuals were too dark and depressing. There's an undertone of hope in the writing in the show, and he felt that that was really missing in the title sequence. This kind of made them pause and think, are we making a mistake? But then they were told to continue work because they were also rushing against a deadline. But a few weeks later, they received this amazing track from Ben Frost, who's an Australian-Icelandic music producer. And this track immediately blew their minds.
The door that finally opens with light flooding and spilling out on the floor. The core that never was, now it will be. The bones of what was there before. Every step, every beat, every thought, every breath, everything is lost.
It was atmospheric and melodic, and it captured the feeling of going from the familiar to the unknown. The vocals added another layer of hope and positivity that they never had before. And suddenly it brought this beautiful contrast to the dark visuals. And it's this combination that creates what I earlier called delightful dread. With all these elements combined, the Raised by Wolves title sequence is just a work of art. It prepares the viewers for the journey ahead, but it also leaves us wanting more. And that's the perfect recipe for a great title sequence. So whether you've seen the show or not, do take a moment to appreciate the artistry in this title sequence because it's truly one of the greats. So that's it for today's review. If you liked our deep dive on Raised by Wolves, then give us a like, share your comments below. If this is your first time here, then please subscribe and hit that bell icon for further updates. Check us out on Instagram. We are at plexus.motion. If you want to see my goofy face, then I'm at Vijesh.plexus. That's all for now. I'll see you soon. Take care. Goodbye. And Shabak Khair.